And we are live. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night. I think that's all of the time zones covered for WordSesh. So you're about to witness the theme roundtable, which is going to be really exciting. WordSesh is fantastic because we got the opportunity to talk to people from all around the world in multiple time zones, and we don't have to be at a WordCamp. So I've got some fantastic guests for you. I have Sara Cannon, Philip Arthur Moore, and Christopher Cochran. So I'd like to get you guys to introduce yourselves rather than me introducing you guys. So Sara, we'll start with you. Could you please introduce yourself, your background, and what you do every day?
My name is Sara Cannon. I'm the Partner and Creative Director at Range. We are a design and development agency specializing in WordPress. For me, basically, I do most of the creative direction, and that means creative directing all the designs and the looks, and also the user experience of themes and that we make for our clients. And so that's what I'm here to talk about with y'all.
Cool. Excellent. So next up, Philip, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do every day, and why you're obsessed with themes like the rest of us?
Sure. By the way, when I'm not talking, I'm going to put myself on mute. So I'm off mute now. But yeah, I started back in 2000, like a long time ago, and really started getting into themes around like 2007, 2008. I ended up working at Graph Paper Press for some time, doing support, bug hunting, theme development. After that, I went to work for Automatic and WordPress.com and led the premium theme stuff there for like 2 years, 2.5 years. And then this year, I've been doing a ton of consulting, a lot of code review, a lot of theme development, and a lot of underscores work as well. So my whole life is themes. That's mostly premium themes. My whole life is.
That's awesome. And I believe you're the only non-automatician now that has commit access or merge access to underscores. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. That's okay. Excellent. And now, Christopher, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and why you're obsessed with themes.
My name's Christopher Cochran. I'm an independent WordPress developer designer. I've been working with WordPress now for several years. I worked with Web Dev Studios and 10up as designer. I love WordPress. I love theming. I actually come from an Illustrator background, and I kind of just got into theming somehow by drawing pictures and then making pictures into websites. And since then, I've made small websites for like mommy bloggers, food sites, and then all the way up to high enterprise level themes and sites. So.
Awesome, excellent. So you can already see just from those descriptions that we've got a really good panel. So let's start with my first question is, how did you guys get started theming? So we might start with you, Sara. What was your first WordPress theme? How did you get involved? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my background with WordPress starts a long time ago, and I think maybe, I forget the year, I don't even know. But my first experience with theme modification was basically modifying, not starting from scratch, and that was with 2010. And so it was really the basis for me in my early years to where I was like, I can make this work, I can modify this, I can change it, and I was basically using it as a base theme, and it sort of like got me started into figuring out how easy it is to start getting into this whole world. So that's how I got started.
Awesome. And what about you, Philip? How did you get started in WordPress and theming?
I was at Rice University. This was back in like 2004, I think. Yeah, it's 2004. 2003 it might have been, and I was really into like just blogging about my day and about news things. It's like I wanted to have like a website. I wanted to be somebody cool, and I started theming that way. I had a website. I wanted to modify a few things on my site and couldn't really find a way to do it easily. Found WordPress, and the rest is sort of history.
Cool. So how did you go? Did you hack the default theme to start with, or did you find about child themes and then actually do it right from the start?
There was a theme, I think it was called Benevolence. I think the name of the theme was Benevolence. I know that the header image on it was of grass. It was a dark theme. fixed width, very sort of easy to get into, and I just felt like it appealed to my emotional sensibilities at that time as a young college kid, and so that's the one I went with.
That's awesome. And what about you, Christopher? How did you get started on theming?
Well, to be honest, I guess the first time I really started theming things was actually with MySpace. Kind of hacking, the profiles and making my own custom profiles. A couple friends were like, "Whoa, how'd you do that?" And then I kind of just got into designing that way into the web world. Then I started an internship with Web Dev Studios and kind of haven't looked back since then.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. One of the first themes I used to use as a starter theme actually was Sandbox. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that theme, but yeah, that was a cool theme back in the day.
Yeah, it was amazing. So next up, how did you guys learn about WordPress and doing things correctly? Because I know back when I started theming, there wasn't much information online. So one of my things, I would go through the default themes and learn about best practices that way. And I used to do WordCamp talks about the default themes and why they're doing things certain ways. So that's kind of how I learned about best practices. How did you guys learn to code correctly, let's say?
I feel like I was the same thing as you with the default themes, and also just going to a lot of WordCamps and talking with people. For me, the community aspect of our community helped me a lot in the early days.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about you other guys?
Same sort of situation. I mean, it's sort of it's so weird. It's so hard to remember what I was doing, 6 or 7 years ago. But I just remember after graduating from college, I think we all sort of stumble into this thing of wanting to make websites quickly for clients because we're young college kids, and obviously at that time I wasn't charging, like 150 or 200 an hour to do what I do. I was charging maybe like 25 an hour or 30 an hour to do. I'm fresh out of college. I don't really have a lot of experience, and so I wanted to figure out ways to kind of do the things I needed to do with themes quickly to build out sites. And so a lot of it was just kind of looking at the code and parroting whatever I saw. Whatever I saw, whether it was a Kubrick or one of the default themes, that's what I would do. And I still do that today. If I look at 2015 or 2014 and they do something a certain way, then that's probably the way that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I find that as well. Like I always get, I think, most excited about default themes, not just because they're new and beautiful, but because of the code base behind it and the number of contributions and discussions that have been made and the new functions that have been added. So, like as you guys would be aware, but the audience might not, there's been quite a few template tags introduced into 2015. So it's really exciting that there's a new title tag. So if you look at 2015, you'll see there's no title tag, which we're all used to seeing, but that's been introduced. There's quite a lot of functions around archives and getting the titles there and things like that. So like the default themes are an amazing place to learn, and obviously underscores as well. What about you, Christopher? How did you get started on your educational experience with WordPress themes?
I guess it was really diving into Sandbox, because at the time Sandbox was really one of the first themes to start adding body classes and just doing really different stuff that you didn't see in core WordPress or in other themes. That just allowed a lot of flexibility, and that code just kind of inspired me to keep going. And I'll take even outside sources. Like I remember using Blueprint at the time, which was a CSS framework, and going through that and kind of merging the two together just to create this monster starter theme back in the day. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember all those things too.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, in terms of designing themes today, I know, Sarah, you're a unicorn. We all know that. So you're a designer developer for people who don't know the term. Unicorn, you can check out WordPress.tv to see Sarah talking about that, because she believes that you should be both a designer and developer to kind of understand both worlds. So in terms of design process, obviously you'd be taking the reins there and creating the design itself, correct? So
Yeah.
Do you do that straight in Photoshop, and then do you do mock-ups of tablets, tablet versions and mobile versions? Like how do you create your design?
Well, it depends on the client, first of all, and their problems they need to solve. Sometimes when I come into it with something already existing, but sometimes when it's coming from scratch, it's a whole different story, and you can sort of go crazy and do all these wonderful things, like starting out with for the design doing some tiles of styles and getting the typography down and some of the colors and stuff, and then you can go into wireframing from there. And with that, I like to do certain breakpoints in the wireframing, and mobile, and then up and up, and then from there, depending on that, if that's approved, then you go into designing it, with an editor, like not straight into code, because I find that a lot of the clients that I work with, even though I want to maybe go straight into code, even with the style tile, like they don't want me to. They want to see something and approve it. So depending on the client, there's a different process, I think. And
yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely.
So,
yeah, they're visual people, because we can, can kind of say, oh, we're going to jump into the browser and start coding, but it's not like you're going to send them a link and go, hey, just get like auto refresh on this page and you can just watch me work and tell me what you think. The clients don't want to do that. We don't want them to do that. So I think, Photoshop file is definitely beneficial.
We're still in the age where people want to see something tangible before you go straight into code. And sometimes you can kind of trick them and be like, oh, this is it. Take a screenshot, And sometimes, we'll end up doing that. We'll take screenshots of stuff that we modify. And but I use Sketch a lot, actually. And I also still use Illustrator. I don't ever use Photoshop for comps.
Oh, okay.
At all.
Just because you like vectors, or you're more comfortable in Illustrator?
I feel like the browser is a more mathematical tool than it is a pixelized tool.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, is you can't get design sign-off from a client when you're working in a browser either. So you can physically show them a PSD and go, hey, is this what you want? Yes, sign here. Cool. Let's start developing. What about you, Christopher? How do you tackle the design process?
I mean, just like Sarah said, it's different every client. Most of the time, though, me personally, like I will work in browser because I'm just so comfortable within it now. Have many different like codes from other sites that I can kind of bring together and like prototype things pretty quickly. Depending on the client, if they're okay with me prototyping, I'll like go through feature list and kind of prototype something out. Be like, how do you like this, especially with all the different devices and screen sizes we have now. It's very hard to show them a static comp sometimes. But then too, some of them come and they're just like, yeah, I don't really get this. This is just a menu, like I don't understand. And you're just like, okay, here, let me take a screenshot of this and send you that. And they're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Cool. Philip, are you still around? What about your design process? Hopefully you're there. If not, I shall move on. Nope. Okay. So, design process-wise, do you guys start mobile first, even in Photoshop? Do you start there and build out, or what's your process?
Well, I mean, I guess I've started doing something more content first, I guess, because really, what is mobile now? There's some mobile tablet phone things now that are just the size of my laptop.
iPhone 6 Plus.
Yeah, basically, and the note is just ginormous. I think it has a resolution of something like 4,000 by something, like more than my TV.
Yeah.
But I'll start with really the content and kind of go through different typography and kind of get a feel through that way through colors, the type, and try and convey emotions and see what the client responds through, and then build off from there.
Cool. What about you, Sarah? Do you go mobile first, content first? What's your normal strategy? Or does it depend on the client?
It really depends on the client. I feel like I somehow get the clients that don't have their content quite yet.
Don't we all?
They don't really know what they're going to say half the time. And so it makes it a little bit difficult unless it's more like a really distinct branding brochure type site where you really know what you're going to be working with when you get it. And you're like planning that out at first. But so really I like to start with wireframing, and I feel like that really helps solve a lot of the mobile issues when you're really in the beginning. So
and to get the clients actually thinking about content too when you start doing some wireframes, like, oh no, we don't want that, and we have this product or some things like that. So yeah, I can understand wireframing helping there. Awesome. So Philip, what about you in terms of design process? Do you design stuff, or are you just a developer? I'm not sure whether you're a unicorn or whether you get given designs. What's your process like? We'll have to get you to unmute yourself too, Philip. Sorry.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I would say, yeah, 80-20 design. 80-20 development. So 80 development, 20 design. I mean, I really don't like designing. I like if you gave me something to design and you told me to do it, yeah, I could do it, but it'd take me a long time. It'd take me a lot longer than it would for me to dive into development. So if I can take something that another designer's done and just work with it and work with the designer and improve upon those designs in my own process, I really, really enjoy that a lot.
That's cool. I'm 80-20 the other way.
Awesome.
I'm 50-50, I think. I don't know really though. It changes every year, it feels like.
Do you think that changes, Christopher, based on the client you get and the specs and the jobs coming in, stuff like that? Or is it more you feel creative one year and the next year, like, I just want to develop stuff?
You know, I think it's more just a feel, because I feel with a lot of the creative stuff, you just have to be in the mood for it. And if you're not feeling either a client or the project, it's sometimes really hard to create. So I think it's a mood thing.
Cool.
It's like the full moon just affects me, and I'm like, nope, no designs this week.
That and you turn into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Different color. So next up, that's awesome. So next up on my list, I've got theme frameworks. So do you guys have your own internal theme frameworks? Do you use underscores? Does it vary? Like, what's your process like when you've got a design ready, the client signed off, or you've been handed a design? How do you start?
At Range, we've developed like a theme framework based off of underscores, and then we've sort of put it into where we want it to be. So
cool.
That's where we are.
Awesome. What about you, Christopher?
I mean, most of the time I'll use Genesis. Also, I just have a lot of clients who come to me kind of just asking for Genesis. And if the project fits that I think it will be a great fit with Genesis, I'll definitely go ahead with it. I'm just so very comfortable with it. I can get some sites done, you know, like in a blink of an eye, it feels like sometimes. If the projects are a little bit different, you know, something like underscore just completely from scratch, or again, look outside of WordPress and look at things like boilerplate or, you know, a couple of these other type of projects out there and see what I can get a start from those, bringing it into WordPress.
Cool. With Genesis, because excuse my ignorance, I don't use it much because I'm used to developing things from scratch. But I know there's a massive community. Is there kind of like a starter theme, like underscores for Genesis? How do you normally tackle things? Is it always child themes? Or how does it work?
So yeah, it's you have Genesis, which is basically the core theme, and you'll build child themes off of that. There's a bunch of helper functions within Genesis that you can kind of use in your child theme. Then inside the community, you know, GitHub, there's a lot of great other people's starter themes that they've built. You know, some with Sass, some, you know, just regular CSS, or they have all these include files, and you can comment them out or include them for different things. And then you have the official themes from StudioPress, which sometimes, you know, a client will come and say, I really love this theme, and all they want is, you know, a change of the logo or colors, or, you know, I like the layout of this, but what can you do with it, type of thing. So it really depends on the client with, you know, starting point in Genesis, if it's like a starter theme or, you know, from complete scratch child theme or something.
Yeah, cool. And now I think, Philip, I already know the answer to this question, where you would start. I'm guessing underscores for all your builds, correct?
Yeah, sometimes. You know, underscores is such a weird, it's just so weird because, I mean, I feel like so much is happening around like web development, not even WordPress themes, just web development. You know, sometimes I feel like underscores is, you know, the development around is slow, which is fine. You know, it's totally fine, but I feel like sometimes it doesn't really get me where I want to go as quickly as I want to be there. And we're working on a lot of tools around making it better, around sort of making underscores.me better, so we can like add, you know, Sass less modules into it.
Yeah.
WordPress.com stuff, WordPress.org. But where it is now, you know, I'll take it and kind of shape it to where I need to be for my own personal consulting and my own personal projects. But you know, it's getting to where we want it to be. And I use it a lot. You know, obviously use it pretty much all the time as a base for what I'm working on. But
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm not super like religious or dogmatic about this stuff. I mean, I'm sure there are tons of other great tools.
Yeah. Cool. So in terms of, like on the topic of frameworks, obviously one of the big things that I think that I've always been thinking about and overthink about is grids. And we use internally Foundation. I've got a starter theme that basically I took underscores, forked it, added a whole bunch of Foundation support because I really like the grid system there. So I use that. How do you guys develop grids? Do you have preferred frameworks there? Do you roll your own for each site? Anyone?
What I've done is basically, so everything I develop is it starts out mobile first. So the grid has, you know, there are breakpoints in it or whatever, but let's say you have a grid of like 12 columns. Well, if you're in a mobile view, every one of those grid is going to be, you know, 100%. If you're in a tiny view like this, it doesn't matter what the you know, column is. It's going to be 100%, and then, you know, I'll do it percentage based and scale it up. So, you know, let's say I'm at a breakpoint of like, you know, whether you're using EMs or pixels or whatever. Let's say you're at like an 800 pixel viewport, or 1024 viewport, whatever. I'll say, okay, if I'm in a 12 column grid, then 6 is 50% and 4 is 33.33333%, stuff like that. And there are a couple things I do to ensure that the layout doesn't collapse. Like, let's say there's no content in a grid, you don't want your layout totally collapsing, so you need to hack it a bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't understand people's hesitation, or I don't understand the problem with using grids. I think they're awesome. I think everyone uses them, right?
Yeah. What about you, Sarah? Do you use grids? Do you roll your own?
We just sort of work with what every single site we make is so different. We're not making sort of like a lot of different sites that are similar, and so I feel like we sort of just start from the mobile up and work with what we have.
Yeah, cool. So it's completely custom every time, basically, for you. Yeah, cool. What about you, Christopher? Do you use grids? Does Genesis have grids? I have no idea whether it's got built-in stuff like that.
In the sample theme, there's a little like grid sample CSS code. I really don't, I guess, believe in grids. Like, I mean, back when they kind of first came out, you know, grids like, what was it? 960 grid and a couple of things like that. It was like, oh, this is
GS, I think.
Yep. It was like, whoa, this is the cool new thing. And now I just find sometimes with a lot of these grid frameworks that they just use a bunch of junk CSS classes to throw in, and I don't know. I just feel like you're almost limited sometimes. But yeah, it depends again on the project.
Yeah, cool. So my next question is in terms of build process. So you've got a design locked down and you're ready to go. Do you guys go straight into WordPress coding, or do you start with HTML? Because I know a lot of people will do HTML builds and then they'll change that into WordPress. So what's your build process like there? How do you get started?
Well, for us at Range, usually we have more than one person working on the build. And so it makes it be a combination of things where sometimes you're entering content in initially and you're also doing HTML with that content because you have all these functions you got to put into it, but then you're not quite ready for that yet because you need to do. So it's a mashup of things, you know, in a collaborative environment. So it's a little bit chaotic, but we really enjoy it.
Cool. What about you, Philip? How do you start a build?
I usually just go pure HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I don't like WordPress. I don't like WordPress. Yeah, make that like a thing. I don't like WordPress dictating sort of. I find that, like, let's say you kick off a design, or you kick off a design using underscores, or let's say you kick off a design using code or functionality that's already kind of baked in. You start getting sort of married to that. You know, you start kind of feeling like you have to do certain things, like I think all of us could look at a number of sites and be able to tell you that WordPress is behind that site. And I don't like that. I don't want people to know that WordPress is behind the design of the site. I think that WordPress should be sort of like Procter and Gamble. You know, it's like nobody knows Procter and Gamble makes Swiffer. Like, I just want it to kind of be in the back. And so I'll usually do HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then I'll start, building out the functionality. That seems to work well for me.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, because sometimes you'll look at a design and like, say, for example, a tricky menu. If you just jump straight into WordPress, you're going, okay, well, what filters am I going to have to run on WP nav menu? What wrappers am I going to have? How can I manipulate this? Whereas if you just jump into HTML and start doing it that way, you're not restricted by that kind of thinking. The mindset, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it this way, and then you can have your code done, and then you can go, all right, now I want to turn that into WordPress. So you actually, it changes the way that you're thinking about the build rather than WordPress first, which is interesting. What about you, Christopher? How do you tackle a build?
I'm going to have to agree with you, too, on that. It's I think when you kind of start with WordPress, though sometimes you can get stuff quicker if, it's a basic blog or whatnot, it does kind of box you into that, header, nav, sidebar content type thing that you're seeing in so many WordPress themes.
Cool.
But, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so next, do you guys do prototyping? So obviously clients have unique functionality all the time. Some of the things we'll look at and poop the bed because they're like, can we do this? How do we do this? Can it be done in WordPress? I know I personally do a lot of prototyping when I see things that are unusual, and I'll do it often outside of WordPress, and then I'll come to WordPress, and then I'm confident to go, yes, we can deliver this. I've prototyped it. Do you guys do a lot of prototyping?
We do a little bit. It's not like huge blown out prototyping, but for small certain functionality and things, like if we're really concerned about speed, we will prototype something out before we present it to the client if we know that we want to know it's going to be fast enough, so we don't show them this beautiful thing and they can't, and they're like, oh, it's too slow.
What about you, Philip? Or has he dropped out again? Might have lost Philip. Christopher, what about you? Do you do prototyping a lot?
It depends on, what the elements of the site may be. Like if I want to try and do something out of the box that's not easy to explain to the client, I might whip up something really quick and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And sometimes, the client can't understand it at all, so either we have to drop it at that point, or, he just puts faith in me and I develop it a little bit further, and hopefully they like it at that point. But sometimes it could be risky kind of showing a prototype first to your client. Sometimes I'll prototype just internally to say, is this the best way to do it, test it out, and then, okay, you know what, this is going to work, polish it up, and then send it to a client too.
Yeah. That's what most of my prototyping is internal, just kind of confidence for us and our team that we know that we can definitely do something, because if you showed the client the prototype, they might go, hey, you've done half the job, so why are you going to charge X? So, yeah.
Or you've done the prototype, they're like, oh, the job is basically done.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So let's get geeky and talk about tools and development environments. So what do you guys use for developing environments? Are you using MAP? I'm guessing no. Vagrant, and if you're using Vagrant, what version? Have you got your own version? Are you using VVV? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, while I was working at 10up, actually, VVV was being heavily developed, so it was kind of just fell into my lap, and I kind of fell in love with VVV. Before that, I was using MAMP, but being able to create your own boxes. And then, Grunt and Sass and Side, all that, and not having to worry to blow up my computer downloading stuff. Pretty cool.
And what about range, Sarah? What do you guys use? I'm guessing you'd have a consistent tool, because obviously lots of people working on the project, you want the same environment.
We use VVV with Grunt and Sass, and we use Beanstalk for a lot of our repos if we're hosting the repo, if not the client. So.
Cool. And have you modified VVV in any way, or you just used it straight out of the box and that works?
You'd have to ask Pete that.
Yeah.
Not me.
That's good. So code editors, that's my next question. What do you guys use there? I'm a PHP Storm user. Lots of like Sublime Text. maybe we'll ask Philip. Welcome back. He dropped out again. What do you use for a code editor, Philip?
I'm actually not dropping out. My connection's stable. I can hear you. Just,
Okay.
Oh, he's just ignoring us. I see how.
No. No, this I got a lot of stuff happening around. Very sorry.
That's cool.
I use Sublime Text with Sublime Linter to check for with the PHP coding standards from WordPress sort of baked into that also. So as I'm typing, it'll just make sure that what I'm doing is in line with WordPress coding standards, and that works really, really well for me.
Cool. What about you, Christopher?
And this is probably gonna sound lame, like, because everyone has their cool, like, Sublime and PHP Storm. I just use BB-Edit. I started with Text Wrangler and just kind of upgraded to BB-Edit and haven't really left it, just out of, I don't know, fear, I guess, or just comfort. And then just command line, to run like linting and stuff like that. So BB-Edit and command line.
Cool. What about you, Sarah?
I just use Coda.
I love Coda.
Coda's cool, actually.
Yeah, I used to use Coda a lot. I mean, I used to use it. I used to be just so in love with it. I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know. You know how like sometimes you'll be using a tool and then all of a sudden something happens, and you just one day wake up and you're using another tool.
Yeah, like CodeKit. And then, Grunt came along and suddenly it's compiling everything for me, and I'm just like, okay, bye.
Right. Yeah.
So in terms of build tools, obviously pretty much everyone said Grunt, and I use Grunt too because more users Grunt. Is everyone a Grunt user? Has anyone tried Gulp? Like, I've experimented with it. I didn't really see the benefits of Gulp. Everyone says it's faster. I think it's more down to how you actually develop your Grunt tasks. If you stack them all up so everyone's running all the time, obviously it's going to be slow. Whereas if you split it down, Grunt's pretty fast and it's comparable to Gulp. What do you guys prefer? Are we all Grunt people?
I've messed with Gulp.
Am I the only one who I don't use any of these tools? Am I gonna like out myself as some sort of newbie?
Whoa.
I haven't really. You know what it is? I think it's because the platforms I'm working with, specifically because I still work with WordPress.com so much, even though I'm not an employee of Automatic anymore, but I work with code that goes onto WordPress.com pretty much my day-to-day work. And because like there's so much happening in terms of like packaging and performance and all that stuff after the fact, I don't even really think about it that much. Which is bad. I know it's bad, but I don't think about it as much as I should.
So for CSS processing, pre-processing stuff, what happens? Is it your code editor doing a watch? I'm sure there's some kind of process there that uses Grunt. Maybe you're not aware of it, or are you just straight CSS?
Oh, I'm straight CSS. I'm old school.
Okay.
I'm old school.
Wow, you are. OG.
Old school, man. All these new tools, these new fangled tools you kids have. I don't want to have any part of that. Just give me a float. Give me a float left and a width 100%, and I'm good, baby.
Awesome.
Oh, man.
That's interesting. So it's funny because I would have picked you as a CSS preprocessor guy just purely because you're the guy that's put like automated testing into underscores. So let's talk about that. Like, you're obviously Travis, you've done that. That's pretty cool.
I love Travis. I love Travis. I love automated testing. I love automated tools. I mean, I don't mean to say that I don't think SAS or Less are awesome. It's just not a tool that I've had a lot of time to get into. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day, right? So what tools are we going to be spending our time on? And I guess the ones I spend my time on are more focused on sort of, critical errors, like critical issues that come up with PHP and themes, like stuff that makes me crazy. These people who launch themes on these marketplaces and launch it in your website fatal, stuff like that. Like, I want to get tools in place to fix all that, but the stuff to make doing work easier, I haven't invested enough time into.
Interesting. And what about range, Sarah? Do you guys have, do you use Travis to do automated testing? Like how do you handle that kind of stuff?
I don't do that.
Pete? Where's Pete?
that would be Pete when it comes to
Yep.
maintaining code quality.
Yep.
But I do a lot of the visual QA and fixing the SAS and that
Yep.
sort of stuff. So.
Yep. And do you guys have an internal review process? So if you do some code, you do a pull request, then you ask for a review merge as such, and then that'll happen, and then if this code's going to WordPress VIP, for example, obviously they review that once that's there. Like, do you have that kind of a process?
Well, yeah, we do work with VIP clients, so obviously we have to review our own stuff, and then they review it, but then we do review it ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
So in terms of any automated testing, I think Pete has something he does, but I don't know what it is.
Cool. And what about you, Christopher? Like, how do you maintain your code quality and stuff like that? Do you have any tools? Do you use Travis, any of that kind of stuff?
I guess it's just really like the online like PHP code sniffers and like JSS lints and just seeing if I white screen WordPress. So.
Cool. All right, so I suppose I think we've got less than 10 minutes to go, so I better jump into some of the questions that we've got from our audience members. One of the things that's coming up, I've noticed, and it was something that was on my list, is talking about the future of WordPress themes. Obviously, everybody's talking about the JSON API that Ryan McHugh's been leading and Rachel Baker. It's pretty exciting stuff, and it could change the way that we theme. Do you guys see us developing, say, WordPress themes that actually only use WordPress in the back end, and we do just straight HTML using templating, so things like Mustache and Backbone to actually power a site on the front end, but not even develop themes traditionally like we do now? Can you see that as something that might happen?
Well, a lot of people are doing that already. Like the New York Times does that already. But they don't have a lot of the great tools to do it, and so this is going to really help that become a bigger thing, and I think it can only be good and initiate progress. So.
Cool. Yeah, one of the things that you guys Zach Tolman, obviously he's done a lot of work with Backbone. The Theme Foundry has a cool theme that it uses Backbone if you have it. If not, it falls back to traditional WordPress. Do you think, obviously for people like us, when we're developing client sites, we don't have to worry about that kind of thing because we're not shipping a theme. Do you think
Are you
people
talking about collections?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so traditionally, like we're doing client work, it doesn't matter, we don't have to be kind of backwards compatible, but can you guys foresee themes on .org using both, say, Backbone stuff and then falling back to traditional WordPress? Would that be something that might happen?
Oh, I don't see why not. I don't see why not. I mean, I don't think I'll be someone who spends a lot of time personally.
Yep.
On that, I'm more interested, I guess, in. I guess I'm more interested in taking what we have now and making it better. I think we tend to get sort of caught up in all like the new hotness and WordPress as it is. I could probably list out like 50 things about themes and about themes that are just terrible, about not only making them with WordPress, but also just the way WordPress like thinks about themes and handles them. So I could see it happening, but I feel like we've got a lot of work to do with what we have now.
Yeah, I think the main driver, is the speed of using Backbone and things like that, technologies like that, Angular. Like, it's really quick, but
Sure.
It all goes back to your hosting a lot of the time and how you optimize WordPress. It's not, like, granted there are some issues with WordPress core and backwards compatibility and all that kind of stuff, but you can scale it. So a lot of people seem to think that, oh, I'm on a crappy host, WordPress is slow. It's like, well, it's your host that's the problem. You don't really need these new technologies. You just need to optimize that. So I think there's a lot of kind of debate about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I mean, there's a lot of people using old versions of stuff. I mean, I live in a country where nobody here knows what WordPress is. Like, nobody here knows what people are running on IE7 and IE8. I mean, people are running on these old technologies and think that having a business website means opening up a page on Facebook. So, there's a big, big, big world out there that doesn't involve, high-speed internet connections and so much. Like, we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as Matt's State of the Word talk commented, he made a comment about non-English speaking countries downloading more versions of WordPress than English speaking. So there's a huge market still, for example, Vietnam, where you are, where there's a lot of new people that are going to get on board and going to start to learn what WordPress is, I guess, which is pretty exciting.
What I feel like the future of things, what I would hope to see would be we have the customizer now, and that's been a really great advancement for our industry. And I really hope to see front-end editing being an actual reality in the future, and having that be the user experience of that be kind of ingrained in what we do, and also having better onboarding user experience from initial site setup. Yeah. And those are improvements I think we can make, now.
We're slowly seeing them every update too. I mean, look at that new free writing. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think we're progressing that way. So.
What do you think, Sara, about post format, sort of where they are now? What do you think sort of will happen with that? Just as they are now versus kind of where, let's say 5 versions from now. If what do you think? Just as a thought exercise.
Thought exercise. All right. I feel like we got this whole concept from, the way things were going with Tumblr and the way people are how ease of use in terms of the user experience, in terms of basically designating content, and that's good and everything, right? But I feel like it's too selective in terms of designating one whole entire piece of content as one thing. A link is a link, but then you might write a paragraph about a link and include a picture, and you could, what I mean? So it's almost a little bit too constricting, I think, and I really like the idea of going into more of a content block aspect of publishing. That's just me.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So another question we have is for Sara specifically. What modifications have you done to underscores for range, and why?
Oh, we've modified a lot of the stats initially off the bat, and just silly little things that I'm very particular about. I hate having the HTML attributes underneath the comment box. I just take it out immediately, just gone. You know what I mean? Why is that even? Why is that even?
Yeah, exactly.
So just
be there.
Removing a lot of stuff. Starting with a little bit more of a cleaner slate. And that's really what we're.
I need to put a pull request in for that one.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I hate that.
You get a +1 and a thumbs up from all of us, I think.
Yeah, it's terrible. Terrible.
It's awful.
All right, so the last one I've got, mobile app themes. Do you see WordPress being kind of hidden and people creating apps powered by WordPress a lot in the future? I think that's going to be something huge where people just use stuff on their phone and it's cool for them, but behind the scenes WordPress is powering it. Do you think that's going to be something huge, or is it just
they need to get the customizer working, and I mean, does the customizer even work in mobile? What do you mean mobile apps?
Oh, as in WordPress powering mobile apps that are totally detached from WordPress. So you open an app on your phone and it's cool and funky, but behind the scenes it's using WordPress and the users have no idea that that's a thing.
Oh, so that's not super, I don't know where themes would come in with that, but sure. I mean, if they all this work they're doing around the REST API, I mean, this is gonna be
yeah.
A lot of things are gonna happen. A lot of magic's gonna happen.
Cool. So you're right, Chris.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I've built a few apps with WordPress, pretty crazy apps. Inside Facebook apps, to kind of create these photo book albums and different things like that over the years. And this was years ago, before. So now with the API coming out and it's going to be pretty crazy, especially just because of the usability feel that is, behind WordPress and the improvements there. It's going to be a powerful tool if it heads that way.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we're getting the wrap
Yeah.
up now. So thank you so much, everyone, for this panel. It's gone so incredibly quickly. I could talk about themes for another hour, I think. But yeah, thanks so much. That was fun. Hopefully people learned some stuff. So how do people reach out to you? Sarah, where do the people find you? What's the best way to ask a question and things like that?
You can find me on Twitter at Sara Cannon.
Cool. And Philip?
Just Google Philip Arthur Moore. You'll find me.
Cool. And Christopher?
Twitter, tweets from Chris.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Woo!
Bye.
See you, everyone. Thank you.